Welcome. More time has passed, more games have been played. I've just finished playing The Dark Summer by Ted Racer, released with GMT. A bit of a background with this one. I saw it being played at a little convention in the UK 2 or 3 years ago. Forget when it came out in 2021, so it was pretty new at the time. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, looks quite old school. Didn't really grab me. But since then I'd actually purchased the Dark Valley, which I really enjoyed. And I was thinking about doing that again as a bit of solo play. And just the thought of the size of the beast of the Dark Valley slightly deterred me. You can always just do the Barbarossa scenario, which I did last time, and I've done some vassal play since then. I think it's a great game, but it's quite a big undertaking. I just fancied something else with a similar system, so I thought, Dark Summer. I remember that one. That was interesting, I think. Now I've played a bit of Dark Valley, and so of course tried to get a copy and found it's very hard to get a copy of it. It had gone, I think, all the retail. I think the Second Chance Games had a copy a couple of months ago, but there were no retail copies available. Managed to get a second-hand punched complete copy for I think about 40 odd quid from a very nice guy up in Scotland. Came down well packaged, well looked after. So yeah, I gave it a go, and I have to say it's a very, very pleasant experience. Yes, it is, a fairly old school, I suppose you might call it, sticky socks, sort of more of an old-fashioned CRT, but there's lots of little clever wrinkles with the design that Ted's included with respect to how he's composed the rules on chip pull. Some similarities and some differences with the Dark Valley. The chip pull configuration is dependent on the weather, which is always a bit of a worry with games that are quite weather dependent and weather variable, in that they can be quite big swings. But this is somewhat constrained in this one, because describe the weather as sort of fixed random. To explain the oxymoron to that is the distribution is fixed, but the sequencing is random. So essentially you have a set of 9, I think it's 9, because it's a 10 turn game, so there are 9 unknown weather conditions. I think the first turn's fixed. I'm pretty sure the first turn's fixed. So you're drawing these chips out of the out of the pot to determine the weather. So you know what's in the pot, but you don't know what's going to come out. So that gives it a bit of variability. And I think, for me anyway, the jury's out as to do I want the good weather early to get some breakthroughs, and then when the bocage effects get partially cancelled, you've then got the worse weather to try and get the last bit of the campaign through, or do you want the worse weather when the bocage is still pretty tough anyway, then when the bocage is less effective you've got the better weather, and who knows, essentially. I'm not sure either way at the moment. My particular game ended with a an automatic German victory. Essentially the Allies need to capture Cherbourg by the end of turn 7, and they start to accumulate victory points on turns 5 and 6 if it hasn't gone then, and then you are gambling a bit, because if you haven't had the storm weather and that comes on turn 7 and that's your last chance to take it, then you've only got the one die roll because you've only got a single American combat chip. So in fact on my game it was there was a double combat chits on turn 7, both with a 1 in 2 chance, because it was a 1-to-1 combat, and both failed. So that was actually a win for the Allies. I did say, well, what if one of those 50-50s had worked out? Let's play another turn, which happened to be the storm turn on turn 8, and the position just looked a bit of a non-starter with only 2 turns to go. The Allies are not going to get what they need to get. So, but very enjoyable, and much more of a manageable game in terms of footprint, and also time commitment. I mean, you would play this in a day, probably under a day, once you know what you're doing. And I was trying to think of other games. It's got me interested in looking at other Normandy games, but I can't think of any that, if you know of any, put some in the comments. But like a hex and counter game which covers a similar scale and scope with a similar time frame. I mean, I used to have the Operation Cobra, the TSR version. I think I had the deluxe one that came out in the magazine once, but that was definitely old school, but it felt a lot more, a bit more laboured. I think the interplay of the chip ball gives lots of interesting decisions to both sides. So I think this is a definite improvement on that one. I suppose the only thing that I did notice was that I wasn't doing much countering as the Germans. They probably only launched 1 or 2 attacks in the entire game, which may have been down to my cautious play. CRT is fairly attacker friendly, so you're not risking that much, and there may have been more opportunities. Essentially, you get a number of reaction chits that the Germans can use after each Allied chit's been drawn. Again, the worse the weather, the more you get. So that does give you the opportunity to position some units to maybe assist an attack if you know what's still in the cup, which you will do, or to more generally use to sort of plug holes in the line. But yeah, it's a good one. I don't know if you've... The other thing that struck me was that when you check on the P500, I mean, it's on sort of 40 or 50, so that's going to be years before I think it ever sees a second edition. So very pleased to get this one. It's also nice to notice actually got the 9/16 counters, which is my preferred size. So nice and thick. I think Dark Valley's 1/2 inch, but these are very manageable because you get reasonably high stacks. I'll show you the map and call it a wrap, but it's a good game. Would definitely like to play it again. The rules are very tight as well. I mean, I had a couple of questions which were answered on either on Console World or Board Game Geek, and generally everything is in the rule book. Just a few little uncertainties which were soon clarified. So there you go. Hope that was of interest. Okay, quick look at the map. So it's a single map sheet, standard size. You can see the extent of the map here. We've got the beaches, Cherbourg on the peninsula is abstracted. You've got a Cherbourg box, which means that the thing can be done on a single map. That was a design decision, which quite happy with that. Goes all the way down to Avranches in the south. You can actually exit into Brittany, and I think you can actually come back on again via the Brittany box. Falaise is here, so you can do the Falaise pocket in the game as well. So it does extend much further than something like Normandy 44, because these are weekly turns, so it's the first sort of 2.5 months essentially. So it covers quite a big chunk of the campaign. The British are trying to exit the east edge, thwarted by the Germans. Interesting twist with the Allied forces is that they have to, or at least with the British and the Commonwealth forces, their chits are either combat or they are movement, whereas the Americans are combat one side, movement on the other side. So you get a bit more flexibility with the Americans, which is another little interesting twist. You can see the Americans have progressed, gone through Saint-Lô, but with only a couple of turns to go. I think there's one rain turn and one cloudy turn to go, and the Germans still have some forces coming on. There's some very nice play aids on Board Game Geek. There's some kind souls done. There's some for the reinforcement, order of battles. There's also some nice ones for the chits. There's lots of assets in the game, lots of little rules when you can and can't use them. Tend to be sort of weather related, so they're very handy too. But yeah, it's a very nice, neat little package. Now, of course, thinking about the Dark Sands. Not played Deadly Woods. I suppose the big question is why it wasn't called the Dark Woods, but that was released by that was with Worthington, so maybe that's why they changed the title to give a bit of USP, give it a different title for their particular range of games. But yeah, good game. If you can pick one up, I would recommend it. Might be slightly hard to get a hold of. Anyway, bye bye for now.